All right, let me tell you something that most people won't say out loud, because it's uncomfortable, it's intimidating, and for some, it's terrifying to even admit. We are living in a time where the map of global power is being redrawn, not by bombs or invasions, but by quiet moves, decisive strategies, and a mindset that refuses to bow down. And at the center of this storm, there is one country that has started to change the rules of the game so fast that the rest of the world is left scrambling to catch up. That country is India. And if you think this is just about population, cheap labor, or spicy food, then you haven't been paying attention. This is about something much deeper. This is about the rebirth of a civilization that was written off, underestimated, and dismissed for decades, only to come back sharper, stronger, and far more dangerous to the old power structure than anyone predicted. You see, for too long, India was treated like a market to be exploited, a land of resources to be outsourced, a place where the world's big corporations and big powers could come, take what they wanted and leave crumbs behind. That era is over. The India we're talking about now is not the India of passive compliance. It is the India of calculated resistance. It is the India that looks at a superpower and says, "You need us more than we need you." And when a nation starts to think like that, when it starts to walk with that level of self-belief, you can be sure fear will spread in every capital city across the globe. Because fear is not just about weapons or armies. Fear is about unpredictability. It's about realizing that the person or country you thought you could control is no longer in your grasp. And the most dangerous thing in the world is a nation that knows its own worth and is willing to defend it at all costs. That's exactly what's happening right now. India has crossed that invisible line where it no longer seeks validation from the West, where it no longer waits for approval before making a move. It plays its own game, and it plays it in silence until it's too late for anyone to react. Look at the numbers. Look at the military capabilities that didn't exist 10 years ago. Look at the technological breakthroughs in defense, AI, space, and cyber warfare. We're talking about a country that has built hypersonic missile programs that make certain Western generals lose sleep. A country that can take down satellites in space, jam enemy communications, and track submarines in the Indian Ocean like it's scanning a grocery barcode. This is not a country begging for protection from NATO. This is a country that could challenge NATO's very purpose, and yet it's not just about military muscle. If it were, the fear would be limited to war rooms and military think tanks. But India's rise is layered. It's economic, technological, diplomatic, and cultural all at once. That's what's making the world nervous. You can prepare for a military rival. You can create counter strategies for a strong army. But how do you deal with a country that's also becoming a financial powerhouse, a manufacturing hub, a diplomatic mediator, and a cultural influencer all in one? You can't corner a nation that's winning on every board of the chess game at the same time. Think about trade. The same nations that used to threaten sanctions now find themselves begging for deals, because India is the gateway to one of the fastest growing consumer markets on Earth. Multinational corporations know that if they lose India, they lose billions, and that gives India leverage. The kind of leverage you can't measure in dollars alone. The kind of leverage that bends policies and rewrites alliances. And then there's the diplomatic game. India's silent, calm, almost unnerving ability to keep doors open with everyone. While other nations choose sides and burn bridges, India shakes hands with all sides. Russia, the US, Europe, the Middle East, Africa. India plays in every league without being trapped in any one of them. It refuses to be a puppet, and you know what scares the big powers the most. They can't bribe it, they can't bully it, and they can't predict it. They're dealing with a player that has learned from centuries of being manipulated and has decided never again. But let's talk about something even deeper: mindset. Because all the military hardware and economic numbers in the world mean nothing if a nation doesn't have the mental steel to use them. And right now, India's collective mindset has shifted. This is a generation that doesn't see itself as weaker than anyone. This is a generation that grew up watching their country land probes on the moon, develop their own fighter jets, and sign billion-dollar defense deals on their own terms. This is a generation that looks at the so-called superpowers and says, "We'll listen, but we'll decide for ourselves." That's what frightens the old guard. They're not dealing with a dependent ally anymore. They're dealing with an independent competitor. Now here's the part nobody wants to admit. Every empire, no matter how dominant, fears the rise of a challenger that plays the long game. And India is not sprinting. It's marching with steady, calculated steps. While others are busy in short-term politics and impulsive decisions, India is building infrastructure, investing in research, training its military, and forming strategic partnerships that will pay off for decades. It doesn't need to win the war tomorrow. It's preparing to make sure no one can win against it for the next 50 years. And that's why you see the nervous smiles at international summits, the sudden friendliness from countries that used to be arrogant, the careful language in media coverage. Everyone senses it, even if they don't say it out loud. India is no longer the underdog. It's the player you have to calculate every move against. It's the country that can tip the balance of global politics with a single decision. And let's not forget, this is a nation of 4 billion people. That's not just a statistic. That's a talent pool, a workforce, a consumer base, and a potential army all rolled into one. And unlike in the past, this population is becoming more skilled, more educated, more connected. You think the world doesn't notice that India produces more engineers and software developers every year than many countries have people. You think they're not watching as Indian origin CEO run some of the biggest companies in the world. They see it, they feel it, and deep down they know this is not just another developing country. They're looking at a civilizational force coming back into full power. The fear is not loud, it's quiet, it's in boardroom discussions, it's in intelligence reports, it's in closed-door military briefings. And why? Because India is playing a game that's hard to fight against. It's not rushing to dominate through aggression. It's dominating through inevitability. Every road, every deal, every innovation, every alliance. It's all pointing in one direction, towards a future where India doesn't need anyone's permission to lead. And the most dangerous part for those watching, India's confidence isn't arrogance, it's calm. It's the calm of a nation that has survived invasions, colonization, exploitation, and division, and still stands stronger. It's the calm of knowing that time is on your side, and when your opponent has time, patience, and a plan, you better be afraid. So yes, the fear is real. The old powers feel it. The emerging powers feel it. Even the so-called neutral players feel it. Because in the new global order, there will be countries with influence, and then there will be countries that shape the very rules. And India is moving fast into that second category. That's why it's the nation everyone fears now, not because it's reckless, but because it's relentless, not because it's loud, but because it's unshakable. And when a nation like that rises, history doesn't just watch, it changes. It marked the birth of India's assertive military doctrine backed by innovation. Intelligence operations are now sophisticated enough to counter and expose foreign espionage efforts, and this didn't happen overnight. For decades, India's intelligence apparatus operated in the shadows, reactive rather than proactive, often working with limited resources, old infrastructure, and outdated methodologies. But something changed in the last 15 years, something that has completely shifted the way India approaches national security. It wasn't just about upgrading equipment or adding more agents. It was about changing the very philosophy of intelligence gathering, analysis, and execution. The transformation was deep, deliberate, and rooted in one core belief. A nation's survival in the modern era depends as much on information dominance as it does on military strength. The key to this shift lay in recognizing that wars are no longer only fought on the battlefield. In today's interconnected world, battles happen in cyberspace, in boardrooms, in newsrooms, and in the invisible corridors of data exchanges. Espionage isn't just about stealing military blueprints anymore, it's about influencing public opinion, destabilizing economies, sabotaging supply chains, and manipulating political narratives. India understood that if it was to be truly secure, it needed to build an intelligence infrastructure capable of detecting and neutralizing threats long before they reached the surface. And that meant mastering technology, mastering human networks, and mastering the art of reading the moves of rivals before they even made them. This is where innovation became the heartbeat of India's intelligence doctrine. Instead of relying solely on traditional human intelligence, the kind where operatives physically infiltrate and gather information, India began integrating artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, and advanced signal interception systems into its security network. The result was a web of surveillance and counter, surveillance that could track, analyze, and predict patterns of foreign espionage activity in real time. This gave Indian agencies the ability to connect dots that used to take weeks or months to piece together, compressing intelligence cycles to hours or even minutes. Consider cyber warfare. A decade ago, India was seen as a vulnerable target for cyber intrusions, with many attacks coming from state-sponsored actors in rival countries. Today, that picture is drastically different. India has invested heavily in cyber defense capabilities, creating specialized units dedicated not only to protecting critical infrastructure, but also to hunting down and tracing the origins of digital intrusions. These teams have become adept at identifying sophisticated malware, reverse engineering foreign cyber tools, and turning those same techniques back on their originators. In some cases, they have been able to penetrate deep into hostile networks, gathering crucial intelligence and feeding it back into India's strategic planning. Human intelligence hasn't been abandoned, it's been sharpened. Indian operatives are now better trained, better equipped, and more deeply embedded in critical regions where geopolitical tensions run high. Unlike in the past, where foreign spies could often operate with relative impunity on Indian soil, the new doctrine prioritizes proactive disruption. That means identifying hostile operatives early, mapping their networks, and neutralizing them before they can do real damage. In recent years, several high-profile espionage rings have been dismantled quietly, without fanfare, but with a precision that sent a message to foreign intelligence agencies: India is watching, and it is not afraid to act. One of the most significant aspects of this shift is the integration of intelligence work with India's broader national strategy. This isn't intelligence for the sake of collecting secrets. It's intelligence that feeds directly into military planning, trade negotiations, and diplomatic moves. For example, if Indian agencies detect a rival nation attempting to sway a critical ally through covert funding or influence campaigns, that information can be used to preemptively strengthen ties with that ally, cut off the rival's leverage, and turn the tables. Similarly, in defense planning, real-time intelligence on troop movements, weapons testing, or supply chain disruptions in rival states can be used to anticipate threats and prepare countermeasures long before any escalation. Another critical area of growth has been counterintelligence. This is the side of the game where you not only stop foreign spies, but also feed them misinformation that serves your strategic goals. India has become adept at this, crafting operations where hostile agents think they've infiltrated something important, only to be fed a carefully curated narrative designed to mislead their handlers. This kind of deception doesn't just protect secrets, it can actively derail an opponent's planning and force them into costly mistakes. The evolution of India's intelligence capabilities has also been shaped by its understanding of regional dynamics. Being located in one of the most volatile parts of the world, with multiple nuclear-armed neighbors and a history of cross-border tensions, India has had no choice but to stay vigilant. The doctrine that has emerged is one that blends defensive vigilance with offensive reach. India doesn't wait to be attacked in the intelligence domain anymore. It probes, it investigates, and it quietly exerts pressure in areas that were once off-limits. Whether it's tracking terror financing networks, monitoring arms smuggling routes, or mapping influence campaigns in international institutions, India's reach is now extending far beyond its borders. Technology has made a huge difference in this transformation, but technology alone is not enough. The real power lies in how these tools are used. Artificial intelligence algorithms can flag suspicious patterns, but it takes skilled analysts to interpret them in context. Satellites can capture images of a new facility being built in a rival nation, but it takes human expertise to deduce whether it's a weapons lab, a logistics hub, or a decoy. That's why India has invested not only in equipment but in talent, recruiting from top universities, training operatives in multiple languages, cultural nuances, and unconventional problem solving. This fusion of human intellect with technological power is what makes India's intelligence apparatus so formidable today. And then there's the global network. India has quietly built intelligence, sharing arrangements with multiple countries, often in ways that don't make headlines. This creates a two-way flow of information, allowing India to both contribute to and benefit from collective monitoring of threats. But unlike smaller nations that become dependent on foreign intelligence, India uses these relationships to complement, not replace, its own capabilities. That independence ensures that no partner can ever cut off the lifeline of critical data. Foreign espionage efforts targeting India have not stopped. They've simply become more sophisticated. Rival states are constantly adapting, creating new methods of infiltration, using non-traditional operatives such as businessmen, journalists, or even academics to gather information. India's counterintelligence teams have adapted too, becoming adept at identifying these unconventional threats. They can track financial transactions, digital footprints, and even subtle behavioral cues to pinpoint infiltration attempts. And when they catch them, the consequences are decisive. Sometimes it's a quiet deportation, sometimes it's public exposure, and sometimes, in more sensitive cases, it's an operation that dismantles the network from within. These intelligence gains have also had a profound psychological impact on foreign powers. In the past, some nations operated under the assumption that India's intelligence community could be outmaneuvered or bypassed. That assumption no longer exists. The knowledge that any move, cyber, human, or political, might be detected and countered before it even unfolds creates hesitation. And in the game of power, hesitation is weakness. This is where India's real advantage lies. It doesn't just respond to threats, it changes the behavior of those who would threaten it. The emergence of this assertive, innovation-driven doctrine means that India's security is no longer reactive, it's predictive. Every intercepted message, every satellite image, Every unusual financial transfer becomes a puzzle piece in a larger picture. The ability to see that picture before an opponent even makes their first move is what sets apart a strong nation from a vulnerable one. India has reached a point where it is not simply defending its borders, it is actively shaping the strategic environment around it, ensuring that potential threats are neutralized before they can escalate into crises.